What did Jamie say in the first Omen one? Like weird nun stuff?
Yes.
More weird nun stuff.
Yeah, more weird nun stuff for you.
Way more, like to the nth degree.
Hello.
So
Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie.
And Nikisha.
Yes, where we share our love for all things scary and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone. I think we haven't done sirens in a while, so all the sirens, all the fireworks.
I still edit them in, but you haven't done them. But that's okay.
Good.
Okay. Well, thank you,
Good.
Producer Brian, always on top of things.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yes, here to serve. Well, today we are talking about the 2024 psychological horror film Immaculate. Yes, that's the perfect thing. Bring in the choir, bring in the creepy choir music. I'm all for it. Bring in the Virgin Mary dolls and the rosaries and everything for
Amen.
the Immaculate. Amen. Wait, what's the thing that they would say on Handmaid's Tale?
Blessed be the fruit.
Thank you. May the Lord
I
open.
only know that because it weirdly came up on my TikTok today.
Oh,
And I was like, ew, why are you targeting me with this?
right.
I do love
Yeah,
that.
that's an interesting time. But
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about Immaculate, not Handmaid's Tale, which I still haven't finished, but I need to finish that. So this film was directed by Michael Mohan, and it was written by Andrew Lobel, and it stars Sydney Sweeney, Alvera Morte, Benedetta Porcaroli, and Dora Romano. That was my best attempt at Italian names, guys.
It sounded lovely. So.
Woohoo! Italian diction for the win for my collegiate career. So, heavy spoilers for Immaculate. If you have not seen it, go see it. You know, if that's your vibe. If you're into nuns doing wacky things,
Ooh,
go see Immaculate.
Do
Like,
I
what
even
did
need to give a trigger warning? You just said with it.
That's what it
What did-
is.
What did Jamie say in the first Omen one? Like weird nun stuff?
Yes.
More weird nun stuff.
Yeah, more weird nun stuff for you.
Way more, like to the nth degree. So with
Yeah.
that, Jamie, please give us any additional trigger warnings for this.
Yes. I mean, if you did listen to the first Omen episode, there's a lot of very similar themes and triggers, I would say. So this also centers around like religion, Catholicism. We're following a nun. So like if religious trauma is a trigger for you, like that this movie centers around religion. If you are traumatized by pregnancy, childbirth,
Yes.
assault, references to miscarriages. I mean, there's blood and a poor dead chicken.
All that chicken.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was sad.
Very much.
Also, like disturbing fetuses.
Yes.
Branding, leg injuries,
Mhm.
mean nuns.
Mean nuns.
Yes. That is a trigger for the
Uh,
Catholic school people, you know, mean
Mhm.
nuns.
Loud doors. If you like
Very loud
extra
creepy
loud
doors.
doors, if you don't like it, it's not the movie for you. If you like
Right.
it, have I got a movie for you?
Babe.
Just about
Uh,
doors.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Burning
Mhm.
in general. Because I guess there was branding, but also like flames.
People are burning
fire,
up.
Burning, yeah.
Mhm.
Choking and demon babies.
Yeah.
Did I miss
All the
anything?
demon babies. This-
Maybe, but that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, this has been the year of the demon baby. I don't understand. It feels like
so many. There have maybe like I don't. There's just been so many pregnancy movies as of late.
I feel
yes.
like it started last year and like
Yeah.
really shifted into this year. Like we're
Mhm.
just seeing this continued. But it's interesting because it's like this focus on an area that is otherwise like so, you know, pristine, protected,
Mm-hmm.
and showing the most like flipping that on its head and showing the most like disturbing side of it all.
Totally.
And yet, I would like to see one even more disturbing than what we have seen, but we'll get into
Give the people
all of that.
what we want, some more.
More. That's all we ask. It's a simple task. I think it's so doable. What are we doing here? It's like, are we going to be Prude America or are we not going to be? You know, like pick one.
Although
Come on, guys.
this one was rated R, so I give an applause
Sure.
for
Okay.
like two back to back again, like two thematically like really intense topics that also
Mhm.
like decide to push for rated R, and so like we're gonna get, and I feel like I imagine that part of that is similar to the first Omen situation where it's like
Yeah.
it's getting the rating probably because of the topic itself,
Sure.
and like featuring it in a certain way.
For sure.
So, but I appreciate that, like, we still got it, you know?
Yeah. Bring back more R-rated horror movies.
Yes,
Agreed.
please.
Yes.
Give us the
Fantastic. Well, before is that all the trigger warnings, Jamie?
goods. I think so. Just creepy nuns.
Yeah.
Weird nun stuff.
Weird nun stuff. Well, producer Brian, can you give us some more words before we dive into all of the weird nun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Hi, YouTube. We're on YouTube, so if you're listening to us, find us on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, we are a podcast as well, so you can find us wherever podcasts are podcasting. But we're also on social media at Talk Horror Pod, wherever you get your podcasts. No, at Talk Horror Pod, wherever you're on social media. Yeah, like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, follow us there. We're doing some super fun creepy stuff. Yeah,
Yes.
that's all. Oh, I do want to add that Sydney Sweeney was a producer on this movie because she had wanted to do this movie, and then I think she ended up buying the rights to it and being a producer and then put it out. So like this has been like a passion project of hers for a while.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Passion of the Sweeney.
But it's very
yes.
cool because it's also like I feel like her breakout role was Euphoria, and so people might have a particular perception of her, but the fact that like this, like her exploring the horror genre, she also dabbles in other like drama, rom-com, like she really is doing a little bit of everything, but it's cool that she was like really dead set on doing this particular project.
Yeah, especially because a lot of people, we haven't really talked about a lot of like female producers in these spaces that are also
Sure.
like actresses, even if they're not, you know, particularly starring in it either, you know. So it's really nice to have a woman out there who's like, hey guys, I want to be a scream queen, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna buy this script and we're gonna make this happen.
Yeah, give us
I love
all
that.
the scream queens.
Yes. Speaking of, I have been rewatching Scream Queens and I need to finish
Amazing.
watching that wild, wacky ride. But y'all, I did watch two things this week. I never watch things, but I had some time and thought, let's dive. I watched Infested, the French horror movie. Yeah.
That's on my list. I'm gonna watch that soon because that's the director who's directing the next Evil Dead movie.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I did. I had a really good time. I mean, I was definitely here for the concept of, you know, spiders in places they shouldn't be. And I had a really good time. I would have wanted a little bit more of like the body horror of it all, especially because some of the French movies that we have watched was more on like the body horror side of it. So I kind of was wanting a little bit more of that. But overall, I did really enjoy my time. And God, those mutant spiders, something fierce.
Cool.
Very good. Yeah.
It's on Shudder, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Cool. I'm definitely gonna watch that.
And this is it's not horror, but it's thriller adjacent. I finally joined the zeitgeist and I watched Saltburn.
Oh,
What
what'd
did
you
you
think?
think?
What a ride that I was not prepared for, but was prepared for, but then I wasn't. It's like
Mhm.
I knew some mischievous actions were happening and people were not telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mischievous.
mischievous. But I feel like there was a twist that everyone kind of knows what that twist is going to be, and then like another twist at the very end. And so I really had a good time. I sat, and I also don't sit and watch movies all in one sitting because I have the attention span of a raisin. And I
Mm-hmm.
sat for that whole 2 hours
Oh wow.
and
Good for
watched
you.
that entire movie. And I think it was mostly just because the acting performances were fantastic,
Yeah.
that I was just so invested in what was happening and how things were going to play out and who was going to get away with what. And it was a really good time. And the only reason I watched Saltburn, guys, was because I watched Infested, which I have Shutter through my Amazon Prime.
Mm.
And when Infested was done, it suggested uh Saltburn coming up next. And so I just let it play through. And I'm like, this is a weird connection.
Wait,
to
so you
suggest-
watched Infested and Saltburn back to back?
Yes.
That's
Are you
wild.
okay? Do you need a hug? Are you all right?
I had a lot of time on my hands, guys.
You good?
No, I was good. And then, you know what the suggestion was after Saltburn? Bottoms. With
I do want to watch that though. I
That's
do want to
really
watch that.
funny.
and I watched it. It was in two
Oh, you-
sittings. It was in two
Okay.
sittings.
The algorithm is
Wow.
really
It
doing some
listen,
things.
it got
Yes.
you. Say what you want about the algorithm. You watched 3 movies in a row, basically.
I
that's
did.
true.
And I never stray from just watching reruns of Bob's Burgers. So the fact that I sat and watched 3 new movies in the span
Wow.
of 2 days is fantastic for me. So thank you,
for you.
Amazon Prime algorithm, because you got me.
Fantastic. Well done.
Yes.
Got.
We rewatched Kill Bill Volume 1.
Mhm.
Ooh, yeah. How was that as a rewatch?
Holds up. Big
Yeah.
time. Big
It's
time.
And there's
it's like a weird
3?
comfort movie for me.
I feel that.
There's
Just
2.
Vivica Fox kicking ass.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, she's so good. Like they're all
She's
so
so
good
good.
in that movie.
Yeah.
Mhm,
That
mhm.
movie's badass. We'll watch the second one. Also, a lot of the Universal monster movies, like the original ones from the 30s, are on YouTube for free.
Aye.
Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, the Wolf Man, Frankenstein meets the Wolf Man, the Mummy. Those are all on there for free. So if you've never seen the original ones, like there are commercials because it's free on YouTube, but like they're literally an hour. Like these like old Universal monster movies like are literally like an hour and 5 minutes. Like it's not like they're like these 2-hour like long black and white epics. Like no, they're like in and out. It's great. So that's another suggestion for people if you've never seen them.
Yeah, I have not seen them, so I am excited to dive into that. Especially, what was it? Frankenstein meets who? Werewolf?
Wolfman?
Wolfman?
Yeah, that's a good one. I watched that one a
Woof,
lot
woof.
growing up. The Wolf Man? Yeah, Frankenstein meets the Wolf
The
Man.
Wolf Man.
Yeah, the Wolf Man.
Fantastic. Have you guys watched anything else?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
We've been catching up on like The Amazing Race, but I think that's all we watched.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into Immaculate then. And we need a plot summary. And so producer Brian will give us a 2-minute plot summary of The First Omen, Immaculate.
What's the plot?
So, producer Brian, I'm putting 2 minutes on the clock for you to give us your best weird nun stuff rundown. You ready?
Yes.
All right. Ready, set, go.
Sister Cecilia, played by Sydney Sweeney, arrives in Italy. I think she's in, right? Is that what we said?
Yes.
And she refuses to learn Italian. But she became very religious at a young age because she fell through the ice and she feels like God saved her for something. Her church closes in the US. I think it's in Ohio because that's where all
nuns come from.
religious young people come from in horror movies. Anyway, she goes to this place that's basically uh um that is she's in Italy at a nunnery or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And she ends up oh, it's for old people. It's like hospice for old nuns, essentially.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to in my head figure out if I'm actually doing the first Omen or not, but I'm not. I'm doing this. So long story short, she's looking around. She makes some friends. They're all like having fun together. She's gonna they have an actual nail that Jesus was on the cross with. Anyway, she touched that, passes out, and then all of a sudden she's pregnant, and everybody thinks that like, oh my God, it's Immaculate Conception. She's doing this. Long story short, we find out that this place is actually a place where they're trying to basically clone Jesus, and they're putting them into young nuns who can carry children to term. It has failed over and over again, and they think it's going to work with Sydney Sweeney. She figures it out. She tries to escape. They brand her feet to keep her from running. Anyway, she gets loose, and she ends up slaughtering everybody, and
Yes.
she gives birth at the end, and the baby is deformed, so she ends up killing the baby. And that is Immaculate.
Yeah.
And that's the plot.
Which is great job, Brian. Because honestly, when you were thinking through your thing and talking about like going out or being drugged and stuff, and I was like, oh wait, yeah, like there's so many similarities to the first Omen of like the passing out of it all and then waking up and something has happened. So I get it.
So when we first watched it, I thought my prediction, even though this movie's kind of like straight down the middle in some ways, my prediction was that because they were in hospice, because they were in hospice, I thought that they were basically giving birth to new people and kind of outing it, if you will, and like giving these nuns like another life and whatnot. But I was just thinking too outside the box. Like this movie was very clearly like one thing and one thing only, if that makes sense.
Right, that's too creative, Brian. Like,
I know. I just wanted to, but Jamie and I guessed quite a bit of it in general.
Yeah.
In this, like the second that he's like, oh, I used to be a biologist or whatever, I was like, oh, okay. And then and then she was like, oh no, I won't want to talk about my past. And then she's like, but I was, like I was pulled under the water. I'm like, oh, okay.
But I will
like,
tell
she
you. I'll
thinks
tell
she
you
has a bigger-
everything.
Anyway. But
oh my God.
once I get into my part of Likes and Gripes, I'll talk about all that. But I just thought it was interesting that like while watching it, what the prediction was versus like what it actually just ended up being.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into it with our first segment of Likes and Gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So, Jamie, would you like to go first in your likes and gripes of this movie?
Sure.
Let's do it.
I'll do it. I liked this movie.
Fantastic.
Woo, we did it. It was a good time. I kind of what the
balloons.
Like what Brian was saying, like there are some things that I think are kind of predictable in terms of like tropes with characters and things like that, but I really wasn't expecting it to like kind of go off the walls and like the way that it did, especially in the third act. It's like truly pretty unhinged, and it makes for a really good time. And like she I just think that Sister Cecilia was like really interesting from the fact that she really just doesn't learn Italian. It's just like, I don't know, she's just like doing her own thing, but still feels this like calling, but also is like recognizing that what's going on just seems a little bit strange. Like she really, I think she trusts her gut as much as she's able to in a situation that like isn't necessarily to her advantage. And then when things I think really there was a trigger that I forgot to mention, which is when her like the friend who
Yes.
speaks out on her behalf is suddenly like taken away, and then she sneaks away and finds her like tongue being cut out. Like that whole scene, like it's just like wild. Like it's so funny that like this concept of this you know this cloister or like whatever the nunnery are like doing these like completely outrageous things, like unhinged outrageous things, and like like that's just what's happening. And it just I was like, all right, I'm on board, like let's do it, let's go.
It's like to the extreme.
Yeah,
you're already there, so I'm gonna join you for the ride.
Yeah,
yes,
truly. And again, even if there were like the elements of like I mean the fact that like they took her friend away and it was like that was weird and aggressive. Or she we also forgot about like she gets choked out by the other nun who is like, it should have been me, it should have been me.
Right, in the water.
In the water. And then she like talks to the priest and is like, yeah, I'm really concerned that I don't want to, be murdered by her. And then she just like mysteriously jumps out of a window. It's so wild.
Good effects though.
So wild.
Like her half of her face coming off from jumping was very cool.
It was very nice
also,
that they had that moment to show it. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, nuns be jumping. Nuns be jumping all the time.
It's Brian. You know what it's called? It's called a leap of faith.
Oh. Whoa.
Oh no.
Wow.
Nikisha.
Wow.
I had to. I'm sorry. Jesus knows I love him. It's fine.
Oh my God.
Woo! Nuns be jumping.
It's fucked up.
Sorry.
Oh man, no, that really got me. But I will say, like, taking a step back, the very first scene of the one nun trying to escape and her leg breaking was like very unexpected and kind of it set the tone for the movie, but then I kind of feel like it backpedaled a little bit in the first act, just again like with this build up. But like once it went back to like we're like foot on the gas pedal, like let's go, it really like it picked up a lot. And I like loved all of the like just very extreme, like I feel like it was described as like gonzo kind of, like it was just like wild. It was wild to me, and I was like, yep, gimme, I'm into it. Any of those kinds of things, I'm just like I'm it's more exciting, and like it is like it's gory, but it's not like Saw Hostel gory. I think more because of like the context of everything that's happening, and still makes it really enjoyable. So that leg break and the being buried alive, I was like, holy shit, like let's go. Like the roller coaster, just like it's one of those roller coasters where they speed you out of the gate.
Yeah, that definitely pulled me in for sure.
Yeah. That nun in the beginning, the one who was like, it should have been me, she was just like unnecessarily mean. I feel like that's a little bit tropey, where it's like, nuns just being like, oh, this is like, not really saying anything, but then also the one nun who's just like over the top, like extreme, like I hate you,
right, just a bully.
Yeah, just bully.
Yeah,
unnecessary for me. I do think it's funny that every single nun that comes from the US that's like abroad in Europe is from somewhere in Middle America. That is where all of them are from. They must all live in the same place, and then all make the move to like
they do.
I don't know, and anywhere in Europe.
Suspiria's from Ohio. First Omen was from
Oh, the nun, yeah.
The nun.
They're just all gathered together.
Did you say they're all from Ohio?
I think she was from Ohio in Suspiria. She may have been
think
from
you're-
Ohio in the first nun. I'm mixing them all up. The first Omen.
The first nun.
Huh. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that's funny. That they all just seemingly come from the same place.
Mhm.
Some things that I'm like mixed on is like why is there always got to be like fetuses? Like there's always fetuses. They
Yeah.
always got to show you like the failed experiments.
Sure.
Mhm.
And I mean, in some ways, it's like yes, this is like the effective way to showcase like the horror of it all. But I don't know, like that also kind of feels really overdone now. So I'm like, is there another way that we can express this, which is also why I really like the end of this movie, which I'll get to eventually. But I yeah, again, like just the things that I feel like were unhinged, like her being branded, her faking the miscarriage using a dead chicken.
That was awesome.
That was like truly wild.
Mhm.
The tongue being cut off, like all of her like strangling the guy with the rosary, her
Yeah.
like hitting the woman with the crucifix, like all of this stuff. It was also really funny when her water break and she was just like, you
She was like,
got
"Damn
to
it."
be kidding me.
Yes. That
No,
was
she said-
hilarious.
She said, I think she said, "God damn it."
She did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really funny. And yeah, I wrote down the random quotes like suffering is love,
Mhm.
God must have a purpose for saving me, and if this is not the will of God, then why does God not stop us? Which
I wrote
like,
that down too.
So
Great
that's
quote.
that's not only my favorite line in the movie, that's the line paired with the ending that made me love this movie. And I'll get into my like scripts whenever it's my turn, but
Mhm.
I just want to put like a stake in that because I want to jump off of that a little bit later.
For
Yeah,
sure.
No, I mean, we can talk about it now because I think like that's the thing that I love about this particular quote is I feel like it really highlights like cognitive dissonance really well. So like this idea of these like two opposing things that like can't be fully internalized. You know, the priest who's also a former biologist or the father or whatever, he is like he's doing this because he feels like it's his mission to do this, and not being able to reconcile the fact that like we just saw his lab of fetuses and none of them have survived or like successfully made it through these experiments that he's essentially doing. Is that not evidence enough of God stopping you? Like what the inability to internalize that is remarkable, and again like just a really great example of like just seeing how somebody thinks and their inability, like it's like they say the thing and they're so on the nose and they're right there, but they also can't understand what they just said because
Yeah.
it doesn't fuel their perception and their narrative in that way. So they're
Right.
rejecting like the information that's presented because it doesn't suit them, and like still are feeling very strongly that like that's not what they are perceiving as being stopped.
Yeah. So that reminds me of two things. The first thing it reminds me of is Midnight Mass and the idea that like this is a vampire, but because they see it through their religious eyes, they see it as like a giving angel. And I think that isn't one version. But it also reminds me, if you ever heard the joke where it's like there's a flood in this town and this man is on a roof and a boat comes by and it's like, hey, can we help you? He's like, no, I'm waiting for a sign for God. And then a helicopter comes by and it's like, we're gonna save you. He's like, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then the man ends up drowning, and then he gets to the heaven and he's like, God, why didn't you send me help? Like what's that all about? He's like, I sent you a boat, I sent you a helicopter. Like that reminds me of that joke.
Yes.
Like wouldn't he stop us? It's like he is, if you believe.
Right. Which is so true to what you were saying, Jamie, about the perception of it all, because people want things in their way and how they see it. And so, like, even to your point, Brian, of the story of the joke, it's like, well, he wanted to be saved in the way that he thought was what God saving him looked like, as opposed to literally just looking at the surface and being like, there is someone who is helping you right now. Like, or to the movie's point, all those failed experience means like, stop the process, dude. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay. Move on to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really like that, like, he even says it, but just is unable to realize that is exactly what's happening in that situation.
Totally.
It's wild.
And then, so that was wild. And then the ending of this movie is completely absurd, and I love it. This, first of all, give me more movies where like these protagonists are just fucking screaming and like just like acting wild.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like we talked about this in The First Omen, but man, just like watching Sydney Sweeney, just her, like a close up on her face. They don't need to see anything else. It's just her like fucking gritting her teeth and like gutturally screaming while she is giving birth. And unclear if she's like, is she standing while doing it?
Yeah.
She's
I
standing.
was like, oh my God.
Yes. But that's supposed to be the easier way to give birth is standing from just random shit I've watched in the past. But a lot of people are into standing when giving birth. Like it's just a direct line.
It's just straight down.
Yeah, it's just straight
just
down.
like gravity to do its job. So she grunts for like a minute straight. Then we hear the squelching plop sound of the baby coming out. Then we see her like grab the umbilical cord and just like gnaw through it, like totally like unfiltered. And we hear these like disgusting sounds. And then she slowly walks away after she finds a rock and walks back over. And we see like the blurry vision in the background of the baby, but we never actually see the baby. And then she kills the baby with a rock. I fucking loved this. Like loved it. It wasn't because, you know, in a lot of these other movies, like Rosemary's Baby, spoilers, but for example, you know, you see the monstrous baby and the mom still has this maternal instinct and is like, well, you know, this is the shitty hand I've been dealt, so like I'm just gonna step up and be mom. Right. And it's like, fuck no. This
Even
is
in The First Omen. Literally in
Yeah.
The First Omen, she's like, I'm gonna do it, and then she doesn't. Like,
right.
Sydney Sweeney does the deed.
Yes, she does
Literally.
it. She does not feel any. I mean, I think the context is important, but I think also like, you know, there's this like perception about motherhood and giving birth, and like some of it is like biological. So like when you give birth, there are literally hormones releasing in your body like after you deliver a baby that make it so that you have this like connection. It's like immediate, and a lot of people don't feel that immediate connection. That's also normal, but like there are hormones that are contributing to that feeling. It's like it's okay if you don't feel a connection. This baby didn't exist before and now it does. So, you know,
exactly.
there's no pre-existing relationship other than like pregnancy, but you know, hormones are playing a major role in that. You know, expectation, like all of this stuff. And so for somebody to not immediately express that maternal instinct, and again, like further context of like, she was not a willing participant in this. She was assaulted. She was impregnated without her consent. Like all of that stuff supersedes the like quote maternal instinct that I feel like you get in all of these other, you know, pregnancy related horror movies. And she just, yeah, like Brian said, she does what needs to happen, and she fucking kills that baby, and it's grotesque, and I had a blast.
Yeah, literally my last note was at least someone had the guts to kill the baby.
Yeah.
Because that's context, like she didn't want this and that's totally fine, and it's not her responsibility to take care of this child. Like you said, Jamie, she was not a willing participant, so she has no responsibility to this baby.
Yeah.
Get it out.
And
Get
also
it out
it's
of the
like
world.
there's clearly something wrong. Like something is
Yes.
definitely
Yeah.
wrong. Just because she was able to deliver the baby does not mean that like everything was a-okay. And again,
Exactly.
we don't even need to see it for us to know that like something is I mean, aside from all of the body horror stuff that she was experiencing throughout her pregnancy, like yes, you know, nausea and vomiting during pregnancy is super duper normal, but like your teeth falling out and your nails falling out, that call a doctor, which she does try to do.
But she tried.
But
Yeah.
that is not, these are not common symptoms of pregnancy. So if that is happening, that's concerning. So it's like she even knows that like whatever is happening to her body is as a result of something that is like not great. And so again, another thing to like kind of set the tone for like something is terribly, terribly wrong here.
On top of like, yes, if you're pregnant for the first time, there are things that you might not know that is normal, but because you're experiencing pregnancy for the first time, you're like, I don't know what this is. Let me go check in on a doctor. And then you have a doctor to be like, okay, yeah. But on top of the fact, like, this is considered a quote unquote immaculate conception moment. So there's already a question mark too. So anything that is happening to her, like she has every right to be to say, I'm listening to my body and things are not right. Take me to an actual doctor, guys, because I shouldn't be pregnant in the first place. How did this even happen in the first place?
Yeah.
So somebody help me out.
Yeah.
When one of my favorite things in this whole movie is when they're lying to her during the ultrasound, where it's like, oh, we can't take you to the hospital. And then the doctor says like a lie. And then if you watch it, the doctor like looks at the father like for a look of validation.
Yeah,
and he's like,
yeah,
like
right,
just in his eyes, like, I did a good job, right? I lied pretty well. Like that was so funny to me in the best way possible. Like the doctor was just like, yeah, oh yeah, well, yeah. That was so good.
God, that's so wild. Do you have any other likes and gripes, Jamie?
Do I have any other likes and gripes? I think that's pretty much it. I do want to shout out a friend of mine, Manda, who like kept asking when I was going to see this, and so I told them, and they were like, "You know what? I did really want to see that baby." I was like, yeah, there's like a small part of me that's like, yeah, show me that weird baby. But I like the direction that they take nonetheless.
Yes.
And yeah, it left like a very positive impression on me.
I want to see the baby.
I want to see the baby.
Because if they're not going to show the baby, they compensated for that very well in the whole scene with, like you said, Jamie Herter, just in Pearl fashion, screaming in front of the camera and just having it out. I thought that was probably the best acting moment that I've seen from her in that whole movie, was that moment. And that is enough. That's enough raw, visceral feeling to where you don't need to see the baby, because you just experience this emotion from this woman trying to push this thing out of her after all that she's been through, running around fucking catacombs, pregnant, and then getting like also stabbed, and because he was trying to get the baby out of her, so she's like also kind of like bleeding, and you know, it's
it reminded me of Barbarian, just in the like it doesn't need to show you the most disturbing thing. It is very heavily implied, and there's so many other tools that they use to suggest it that I think make it just as effective, because then your disgusting weirdo minds, your brains are all conjuring up the worst fucking thing you could ever think of, and that's probably worse than anything that they could actually show you. All you weirdos out there with your sick and twisted minds.
It's okay. It's our minds get twisted sometimes.
It's me
too.
I'm sick and twisted. I thought of some gross stuff.
Some very gross stuff. Or my dreams will come up with some very random gross stuff. So here we are. I'll piggyback off of Jamie because a lot of my stuff was similar, but I will say that for me, this movie was just okay. And I will say the reason why it was just okay is because I could not get past how similar it was to other movies that we have watched.
Like
And
recently.
and recently. We've watched these movies recently. And I think it was mostly just because I was thinking of those movies and how this movie presented itself. It was talked about a lot before it came out. It was one of kind of like the most anticipated for this year. And so I was expecting something to be different. We're already getting creepy nuns, that's nothing new. But let's have something different on top of the creepy nuns. What else could they be doing besides trying to impregnate one of their own? Can we do something else? So that's what made this movie just okay for me, because I just kept finding similarities in all the other movies. I will say, though, I love an out-of-tune piano in a horror movie. And at the beginning, there was that in the background. And I was like, yes, this is the creepy, spooky vibe that I love every minute of every day. And I really enjoyed the costume that she had when she was pregnant and they had that whole ceremony for her.
It was really, that costume was like the blue with the veil.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Talk about, like, it feels like one of those when the Met Gala did the like Christian religious theme or whatever, and people were like in different Catholic apparel, and that just reminded me of that. So I was like, it was a beautiful costume. I loved it. So we already talked about the nun that like jumped off the building. I enjoyed that scene, and them like shooting, painting the camera to showing her face. I thought that makeup was really great. I have a problem with Sydney's character because I feel like she is in the bad friend category. In the instance of you see your friend getting her tongue cut out after her friend was trying to speak up for her, and then like never really asks about her or like inquires to try to find her after. Like she literally only just finds her dead in the catacombs. Like, and I just was like, you're not gonna even, I know you're trying to think about yourself because you saw something that happened to your friend, right? And you're trying to like, how can I save myself out of this situation? I get it, yes. But also like, that was your friend and you're not even gonna ask a little bit about or like inquire or see if you can try to save her or even find her or see where she is. Like that just, that didn't sit well with me. So I thought that wasn't a great decision. So a ding on her. But also ding number 2 that made me even mad. Even as much as I loved that chicken scene and that idea, why would you just hide it underneath the bed? There's so many passageways and so many different places that you could have put that thing.
Same thing.
You wanted to get caught. That was like the craziest.
So I agree. She like. It made it seem like she wanted to get caught. Also, I read a Letterboxd review that said, I thought this movie was taking place in the 40s. Imagine my surprise when he answered his cell phone in the car.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I agree. But yeah, it was just kind of like, what? You're not making great decisions, girl. Like, what's happening? I feel like you are smarter than this.
Totally fair.
We already talked about the quote about God not stopping. Great. Love that. Yes. Yeah. I just said she just wasn't a smart decision maker. It's like, check up on your friend. And I think that was it. I enjoyed all of the gore. Of course, we can always want more. But yeah, I think if they would have strayed away, I don't know, from being just so in line with some of the other movies that we've watched, then I would have had a better time with this because there were a lot of different scenes that I did enjoy. But yeah, at the end of the day though, I am happy that the baby got because that is something different. Get that baby. Because that was something different that no one else had done in any of the other movies. So I did appreciate that. But other than that, I had an okay time. But Sydney Sweeney had a really good performance in this. And yeah, it wasn't like a drag to watch. I didn't feel like any parts of it either were slow. I was invested in what was happening. It was just I'm just rewatching the same thing. So, But I still was like, what's going to happen? Where are they going to take this? And I'm glad they took it at least in a little bit of a different direction. So
Here's a question for you, Nikisha.
mhm.
This we didn't watch this till after the first Omen, but I think this came out before the first Omen. Would
Yeah.
you have felt differently about this and about First Omen if you had seen them flip flopped, or do you think First Omen is a good enough, as a better movie that even having seen Immaculate, the First Omen would have still struck you as like better, or you wouldn't have been as influenced by seeing something that was just similar to it?
I'm going to say like yes and both, because I feel like if I would have saw Immaculate first, I would have liked it better, but I still would have um saw similarities in even the OG Omen that we watched with
Sure.
like the nun committing suicide and like,
Hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
pregnancies of it all in general. But I feel like I would have liked it more. And but I still stand by the First Omen in all of the gore that it did give us,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked their gore more than Immaculate.
Hmm.
Cool.
So yeah, it's a little bit of both. But I definitely think that I would have had a little bit of a different opinion if I watched Immaculate first. So
Sure.
yeah, but that's all mine. Producer
Cool.
Brian.
Something we left out that I really liked about this movie was the woman screams over the title card.
Hmm.
I thought
Mhm,
that
mhm.
was really great. My biggest gripe about this movie is that the cops were just asking her weird questions at the train station that just felt so forced for exposition purposes.
Oh, like
Hmm.
why are you here? What are
I mean,
you?
like,
Yeah.
even it was even weirder stuff about like speaking Italian and like, do you know? I forget what it was specifically, but it was like super super weird.
Yeah.
He was like grilling her on like things that like I don't feel like they would have asked.
Right.
Um, I did like this movie, but I agree with you, Nikisha. The opening is great, and then as Jamie said, the first half of this movie just feels like every other nun mystery movie that we've seen.
Mhm.
To me, the foot on the pedal really happens when she sees her friend's tongue getting cut out. And
Mm.
from there to the end of the movie with the chicken and running away, and then it turning into a pregnancy revenge thriller, and then that last 10 minutes of like the screams, the baby plopping out, the heavy breathing, her doing the deed, like, to me, the second half of this movie is awesome and campy
Mhm.
as hell, and it pops because the first half sets the expectation that you're seeing just a normal whatever nun movie that's going to be forgettable, and then all of a sudden it just like revs it up to 11. And
Hmm.
I don't know if I would have felt the same way if the whole movie had been at 11, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think that really pops for me because of that. I also liked the broken harpsichord score
Mhm.
to it. I thought that was really good. Um uh yeah, I think I mean, I really like the, if this was bad, wouldn't he stop us? And I just like that idea behind it, because that added to this movie where like this made me really hate religion and a couple people. It's this movie more than a lot of other ones, I would say.
Hmm.
Like,
Just blanket statement. This made me hate religion. Period.
yeah, just the way that they characters and whatnot.
The end.
My favorite quote from this movie though is, "Life is so cruel, only a man can be responsible." When
Oh
asked if she
yeah.
believes in God, I thought
Mhm.
that was a really good line.
That was a good
Um,
line.
Something that really stood out to me in this one more than other ones is when they're going through the ceremony and they kiss the father's ring. A lot of those shots were just shown from a perspective where like you really see the men like looking down on the women.
Mm.
And I thought that added a lot to it. But I really enjoyed this movie. I never for 1 second was bored. And I thought Sydney Sweeney, as we both said, was really, really good. But man, the moments that really work for me are mostly in the second half of this movie, when it just decides to like go bonkers, and I like it for that, for sure.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and so yeah, that's I just had a great time. You've both stated kind of my likes and gripes as well.
Yeah. And I did like the fact, just the small artifact of like the Jesus nail in all of it was just super interesting.
Yeah.
And it made me think like, is that actually really a thing? Is that somewhere in the world?
I mean, it was like believable enough. Like
It was
Yeah,
believable
mhm.
enough.
that
Totally.
I didn't question it.
Right.
Truly. Like I
Mhm.
imagine that there are like artifacts that exist, within the world until like
Same.
it wasn't the thing that I was like, that doesn't seem. I was like, yeah, sure. I'm in. Let's keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like we have the Holy Grail. Like it's not an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
Like they
Right,
picked,
right.
They picked like a really good artifact that was
Mhm.
Yes.
like Jamie said. I love the term believable enough. You're
Mhm.
still watching a movie. There's still gonna be some like asterisks next to it, but like that's believable enough.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that that was the thing that she used for the priest as well.
Mhm.
But
I also love how the nuns were like, your only job is baby.
yes. I said do not do anything,
Oh,
just baby.
also, this movie does everything in its power to show her boobs without showing her boobs. Like she wears the like very light white outfit that gets
Yes.
wet. When they bring her back, they have her shower off and she's just like holding her breasts. Like
Mhm.
this movie with the rated R does everything to get you excited that you might see her boobs and you don't. Like I feel like I just found that fascinating because like
Yeah.
this movie didn't need that. This movie is not about that. This movie is not improved by that. But
Right.
like and I would say I don't know how many, like the last like 20 movies that we've watched, like nothing felt gratuitous like an 80s movie or early 90s movie.
For
So
sure.
like that stuck out a little bit, even though some of those scenes like maybe that makes sense in the context of that scene. But
Mhm.
like I found that very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've never seen all of Euphoria, but maybe she was like, also, I'm tired of doing this because,
I haven't
know.
seen Euphoria either.
I
Yeah.
watched all of Euphoria and like it made me feel icky for sure.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I'm glad
Because
that
she is naked in that, yes?
yeah, there's like a lot of scenes where she is nude.
Yeah.
But like there's also like a lot of things about the showrunner that like also kind of skeeve me out a bit. So it's just like,
Oy.
yeah, I think I agree with you, Brian, that it's like, she is also like, pregnant, and there's something to like the maternal aspect of like how your body is changing and like what role, like the things that your body is doing, and so like being able to kind of showcase that doesn't feel like gratuitous nudity like we like
Right.
is also very common in horror movies.
Mhm.
But it was like a little bit it just felt like more thoughtful,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, she's
I
also a
agree.
producer on it, so she had say
Yeah.
in what was
Exactly.
whatnot.
Totally.
But like
Mhm.
another movie, that's not what happens. You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
like I just thought that was an interesting point because I feel like we really just haven't not that we're looking for it, but I think it's something
No.
to note, especially the history of horror movies, specifically slashers.
That was the first thing I was thinking of, especially like historically slashers, and then like the resurgence of slashers in like the like 2000s, or like all these reboots that happened in like the early aughts, like, or I guess 2010s, where it's like just boob city, like everything is a boob, and
Everything is a boob. But we
everything
also
is a boob.
we're like, we wanted more peen. Well, we were some movie we were watching and we were like,
Well,
yeah,
we should have more like equity.
Yeah.
If you're
Yes.
gonna give me the boob, like give me the peen. Like
Give me the
it's not
peen.
like it's not like men are not being attacked in slasher movies. So like
Yeah. What
equal
movie?
opportunity peen.
What
Equal
we were watching
opportunity
something
peen.
we wanted more peen, but now I can't remember where we wanted more peen.
I know, but I remember we had a discussion about it. But
I really want to
definitely
Google
did.
horror penis, but I know that I am not going to get anything helpful in that Google search.
And the only thing that I can think about is what is it? Not sleepaway camp. Is it sleepaway camp? Or whatever camp?
Yeah. You're thinking
Yes.
about like the 80s one.
Yeah. where he turns
Yeah.
around and there's peen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did a quick Control F on our Airtable where I write all the descriptions of our episodes,
Screaming.
and Peen came up in the Friday the 13th remake.
Okay,
That's
so
where we
that's-
wanted more.
it was
Peen.
aligned with what I was thinking about, like 2010
Mhm.
reboots
Mhm,
around
mhm,
that time period where there's
Yeah.
just like it's Boob City.
Yeah.
Boob
And
City?
they're like Boob City population 0, no peens.
Yeah, we need. Let's get more Peens in pictures in the
Yeah,
pictures.
peens in our slashers.
Hashtag more peens in the picture, and this has been Peen Parlor Talk.
Peen
Guys.
talk. Peen parlor talk.
Peen Parlor Talk.
Come, sit, have a drink. It's parlor talk.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any last thoughts before we move on?
I still just want to highlight the last 10 minutes. It makes
Yeah.
this movie. It really makes
It
this
really
movie.
was truly something else. Yeah.
So wild. Yeah, I loved it. I loved the one of you guys mentioned the sound effects too of it,
Mhm.
especially like just
Yeah.
her giving her water breaking, especially, but then also
Mhm.
the giving the birth. I thought it was so.
I
so
will
good.
say, and we've mentioned it a couple times. I think that I if the First Omen brought a lot of bad things on this movie in terms of like comparisons, I will say that one of the good things is that we got to see like two versions of like water breaking, like giving birth sequences, like
Mhm.
her after the car accident in the First Omen, and then this one after she escaped from the tunnel at the end. Like that was, seeing those two performances by these women was just like really amazing.
Yeah.
And I just remind me at the end of the year when we do our recap, I have to do a pregnancy like top three like birth sequences,
Yes.
because we've like, I'm sure we're gonna get another one this year. We have to, right?
Oh, we have to.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely gonna happen.
100%.
You got to put that down in your notes to make sure that we do that. in the recap.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, let's move on to our next segment. Brains.
Taste
All
it,
right.
taste
Tasty. So my first question to you, Jamie, is: do you think gaslighting could be considered a defense mechanism in some circumstances? I do not know how I got to that question. I mean, of course, there's gaslighting in this movie all around. But maybe I was thinking, maybe sometimes people gaslight because they're deflecting, or it's like some type of defense against something else, and that's kind of what their go-to could be. But I don't know. So that's my question to ask for you, Jamie.
Yeah. I guess like so to take a step back, defense mechanisms, if you're from like a psychological definition, is supposed to be something that's unconscious. So it's not something that we're like knowingly doing. I think that gaslighting falls under the category of like we're conscious of it. Like it's a tactic that it's a manipulation tactic. So there is a degree of awareness that's taking place, in my opinion, that I think is not, doesn't necessarily fall under like being a defense mechanism. I feel like when you think about defense, like common defense mechanisms, you have like denial, dissociation, repression. So like denial, like totally not able to accept that is like reality. Dissociation, where you're like you're like you are not present in reality, like you are kind of numb and distant to what's happening. Or repression, where you're kind of like shifting to a much earlier stage in your life. So like these are things that like you are not aware of, based on like what's happening around you. I feel like and these are all, they're not necessarily like good things, but they're things that are happening that like our mind is doing to protect us from like like stressful things that are happening. I feel like gaslighting, like the people who are gaslighting are aware that maybe like the things that are coming up in conversations are things that they want to avoid, and so they're doing things in order to avoid addressing whatever is
Yes.
coming up in that situation. So I feel like there's, again, like a level of consciousness, awareness that's like more present
Mhm.
than a defense mechanism. So that's my answer.
Yeah, no, that's it. Get me together, because I don't know. No, well, and it reminds me of our other conversation about trauma bonding and like the misuse of that
Yeah.
phrase.
Mm-hmm.
So like knowing that defense mechanism is something that is unconscious, like that makes a lot of sense. And so we always have talked about gaslighting being a manipulation tactic. So obviously if you're manipulating someone, like you're thinking about doing that, like that is a conscious
Yeah.
thing that you are doing. You are deciding
It's not
that.
it's not to say that like it can't ever be like you might not be intentionally doing it, but I feel like more often than not it's like you know, the whether or not you're like wholly 100% aware of it, it's still you're like you're manipulating someone and like perpetuating harm by having that other person feel like their reality is not true, versus I feel
Yeah.
like a defense mechanism, like yes, other people can be affected by it, but it's more so about like your own mind trying to grapple with something that's happening, as opposed to you like putting, and there are like displacement is a common defense mechanism where like you are misappropriating your anger, not at the actual target that you're upset with, but like
Mm-hmm.
to something. It doesn't just have to be anger, but it's like you're taking out your feelings onto
Yes.
something else and not the actual thing that has like caused you harm or caused you to feel badly. So like there are still ways where, you know, other people can be affected, but I feel like it still doesn't necessarily fall under that same category.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Thank you for that, for the clarification.
Yeah.
Yes, so my next question is, what could be the mental side effects of someone being forced to carry out a pregnancy that they did not want? And this is also very relevant to just how society is now. And so I'm just curious, what could those kind of mental side effects be for someone in that situation?
Good question.
Bad
Yay.
ones.
Oh, bad.
Good
Very
question.
bad.
Good question.
Good question, but
Good
bad
answer.
situations.
Good
Yes.
answer. Let's look at the board.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, losing the autonomy in like decision making in your body, especially in your
Mm.
body where like things are happening to your body that can be like really distressing and uncomfortable. And so again, to like feel like you don't have control over yourself in that way can feel, I mean, I think like even for a desired pregnancy, losing control over your body is already really like psychologically stressful and overwhelming. So
Yes.
like on top of that, to like have to lose your power and have no autonomy over that decision is incredibly traumatic and like deeply upsetting. And yeah, like I can't think of anything like worse than just saying like that's deeply traumatic.
Yeah. And how, I mean, of course, like therapy, but how can someone kind of work through building back that autonomy, like after they have given birth? In, you know, since in their mind, it's kind of like, okay, this, I was not able to make this decision on my own, and so now I've had this kid, but like how can someone kind of move forward in kind of regaining their sense of control over their body after that experience?
Yeah. I mean, yes, therapy I think is part of it. I think you know, there's a whole like it's hard to say specific things that I feel like someone could go through, because I really feel like when you say that someone has experienced a trauma, it really does kind of like open them up for any possible reaction, because I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
it's like the unexpected is almost to be expected, and not unexpected in like, oh my god, like what's it going to be, but rather like there's just such a huge spectrum of like what emotions and experience somebody might be presenting with. So it's hard to say with like 100% certainty, but like, I imagine part of it is like trust, trusting themselves, trusting other people, trusting their gut. Part of it could be, like how it, if they do have a relationship with their child as a result of this, like how do they feel about that relationship? How do they want to feel about that relationship? Like that, I imagine, would take up a lot of time and space in therapy. Um, and again, like there's no right answer. There's no like right relationship to have. It's a really awful traumatic situation, and
Right,
there's
right.
likely a lot of really complicated feelings from it. Again, like we were talking about before, like the pressure of like maternal instincts to kind of like take over and supersede anything else, like
Mm-hmm.
that just like doesn't hold up. And but I feel like because people feel like, well, I have to do this now, like that's what I'm supposed to do, it makes it difficult to like to really sit with and hold all of the really complicated feelings that are coming up at the same time. Because again, I think we've talked about this before, but like as humans, we really like things to be like simple and neat and fit neatly into boxes. And like this is like this is a situation where it's like really complicated and messy, and there's probably like just a bunch of competing emotions that don't quite make any sense whatsoever. And it's really hard to hold all of that stuff simultaneously. Um, so like again, this is a particular situation where it's like, what is this connection? If you want to have a connection, if you don't want to have a connection, like any of that stuff, or even if you can't have a connection, or like there's something that's like preventing you from that, whether you want it or not, like all of that could potentially, impact you. So that's why I say like it's hard to know for certain how somebody might react to it, but like I think anticipating that any of that is like a totally valid and appropriate response, and giving yourself the space to like kind of go through all of that again with somebody that like is able to hold all of that with you, like a therapist, because it's a lot of stuff to have to deal with all at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a lot of stuff to deal with. I mean, you're on top of trying to kind of regain yourself. It's also like dealing with the child that you just had as well. So it's just a lot of things to get used to try to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's all that I have for brains. Should we rotten tomatin?
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm excited to see what you two guess. So let's rotten tomatin this bad girl.
Oh yeah.
gross.
Jamie.
I don't like that. Nope.
Cool. What do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes? Nikisha, why don't you go first?
76.
Trombones. Jamie,
Yes.
what do you think?
That was close to what I was thinking. 78.
This has a 72% on Rotten Tomatin.
Okay.
And but the audience's score is 60%, which is fascinating. Critics' consensus: immaculate in conception, if not always in execution. This religiously themed horror outing is saved by a divine performance from Sydney Sweeney.
I can get behind
yeah,
that.
that's a fun sentence that they wrote.
Yes. Divine performance. Yeah. Yes.
The audience consensus is Sydney Sweeney is great in Immaculate, The concept is interesting, but the movie isn't all that scary, and the ending will disappoint some viewers.
Huh.
I think that is the not showing it aspect of it.
Oh,
Is
okay.
my guess. Is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Interesting.
What do you think this has out of 5 on Letterboxd? Jamie, you start this time.
I'm gonna go with like a solid 3.
All right, Nikisha.
I'm gonna go 2.7.
Jamie got it right on the nose, a 3.
Wow.
And I just want to preface this with the 3 most popular reviews of this movie are immaculate.
Oh
All
my
right.
god.
The third one is I would like to see the baby.
Yes.
The second one is Sydney Sweeney's character went through blood, sweat, and tears in this movie, but she had no intention of learning any Italian.
Accurate.
That's
Accurate.
so funny.
And then the most popular review of this movie, with over 9,000 likes, is nothing scarier than being pregnant.
I mean, that's nothing
Yes.
scarier.
Yeah. On that note, should we make an announcement?
Yeah, do it.
Hey, everyone, guess what? I'm pregnant. Yay!
Yay! We found a
This is not
nail.
a joke. This is
we
real.
found a nail. Yeah, this is real.
It's real.
This is
No
real.
no nails were involved in the making of this baby.
No
So,
nails.
Jamie, you're pregnant.
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just watched The Omen, the first Omen,
Yep.
Immaculate.
Yep.
Mhm.
Which one was the hardest to watch as someone who is currently pregnant?
Honestly, probably the like OG Omen,
Interesting.
because they, spoilers for this movie that came out in the 70s, because they killed their actual baby and they show you like the skeleton of the baby that they killed.
Oh
Sure.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like was pretty, that was sad. So yeah, I think I'd have to go with that one.
And then
Yeah.
of Omen and Immaculate, what is second?
I mean, probably Immaculate, because she is pregnant.
Is second?
Yeah, because she's like pregnant and like going through all the phases. And in the first Omen, nothing's really happening. Like the
Right.
focus is so much on the mystery.
Mhm.
And it's only until that like amazing sequence where she's like grunting and like
Contorting
freaking out
and-
and
Yeah.
like having the transformation where she's like possessed and her body is actually like showing that's when like things kind of take off in terms of the pregnancy stuff. So I feel like Immaculate probably is number 2.
Cool. Great. Should we do the
Wild.
4 S's?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeses. Woo!
All right.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
The 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We are going to rate skulls 1 through 10 for how well this handles mental health and human behavior. We're going to do a 1 through 10 for scares. How scary was it? And then shakes 1 through 10. How's it going to stay with you? Jamie, why don't you start, and why don't you go with your skulls, scares, and shakes?
Sure. Oh, what was that? Was that
A
your
shake.
shakes?
A shake.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. For skulls, I gave this a 6. I feel like the really over the top like gaslighting manipulation was just like so obvious that I don't think normal people act that way. But I do appreciate the like every time that she and her friend were both like, this is like fucking weird, right? Like they were really attuned to like things being off and trying to like
Yes.
follow their gut feeling, even if like things became more chaotic. But yeah, like the priest and the doctor and the nuns, that just doesn't feel real. So it did lose some points on that for me. For scares, I gave this a 4.
Mhm.
I think there are less like scares, but like a lot of pretty good body horror, some just like a lot of really grotesque things that are happening, and it was really delivering. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And for shakes, I'm giving this a 6, even though there is this like kind of overlap that's happening for me with the first Omen. There's just some things in this movie that like I will definitely remember, like seared into my brain. That whole ending birth sequence was just like truly horrifying and wonderful, and that will stay with me for a long time.
Mhm.
Yeah. For sure.
Nikisha.
For Skulls, I gave it a 4 because she just was not making the decisions I wanted her to make, and I will fully take responsibility of what I am
Sure.
projecting on her.
Uh-huh.
But a 4 for Skulls. Scares, 2, and Shakes, I gave it a 3. But I did enjoy this movie, and like Jamie said, the ending scene will always be in my brain.
I give this a 5 for Skulls for the same reasons you two did. I gave this a 3 for scares, though there are some good jump scares, and the opening sequence is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I gave this a 6.5 for shakes. The 0.5 just to emphasize the end of that movie for sure.
The 0.5's for the baby. Yes.
Yeah, the 0.5 is for her killing the baby, to be
Yes.
totally honest.
Yeah.
And my suggestion, because I'm sure someone's going to pick my second suggestion, but I won't do that. My suggestion is Midnight Mass. Watch Midnight Mass on Netflix.
So good.
Nikisha, can I guess what yours is?
What, the first Omen?
Yeah.
Omen? Yeah.
Wait, is it the Omen or the first Omen?
I'll do both. I'll take both for
Mine
200.
was the first Omen.
Oh.
So you take Omen.
Just came out.
Yes. Jamie will take the Omen. I'll take the first Omen.
I mean, again, you could also do Rosemary's Baby. I think that was one of my suggestions from the first Omen as well. That I think is like the Omen is like the OG, but also like Rosemary's Baby's the OG, like pregnancy and gaslighting
Yes.
situation with a little bit of Satan thrown in there.
You know, just for shits and giggles.
Just for shits and giggles.
Fantastic. Well, that wraps up our episode of Immaculate. You can follow us on all social medias: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at Talk Horror Pod, POD. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
You can listen to us wherever you find podcasts. So YouTube, hi YouTube. You can also, of course, find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you. Woo. What quote should we end this with?
I mean, I think we need to with more peen.
More peen.
More peen. I
peen.
need more plums in
Yes.
horror films.
Plums?
I can feel it in my plums.
Jiggly fruits. Or
Yeah,
whatever,
some twig and berries.
Twig and berries.
I want to see some floppy dong.
Yes.
Oh my
A smoke and a
God.
pancake.
Yeah, a bong and a blitz.
A bong and-
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.